Well, as I was looking around then while you were resting, I was reminded of one of the little games and things they play in some of the encounter groups where you sit with a partner and you just ask them the same question over and over again. It's either what are you or who are you? And you have to keep on coming up with some sort of an answer, and all you get back is thank you, who are you? And it goes on and on and on, I think for 15 minutes at a time. Now you may wonder what the point of all that is, and it's really can be quite a learning experience to try and discover who you really are. Look at it as our own lives in this and say, can I really reach out and find that tree of life, that meaning in life, that feeling of that I am really okay, and just enjoy it? And I think at the present time it's very important that more and more of us do that, because life is getting more and more artificial all the time. We're losing the ability to just do simple things in simple ways. And yet, if you look back at your life, you'll have had one or two very exciting periods doing great big exciting things. But the things with a really deep meaning are things just concerning the simple things in life, just being close to somebody, sharing something really beautiful with them. And those sharing things are what make us. And if we're chasing the great leisure land, footlock flats concept, the safari parks and all these things, we don't leave enough time for ourselves just to enjoy what's around us right here and now. We don't enjoy just being. We're so busy trying to be. And it's that trying that puts us out of harmony. It means that we no longer play the music of nature. We're constantly playing something quite differently, something very raucous, and we don't really come to grips with ourselves and say, look, what if I let all that go and just enjoyed where I am? Now, it's very difficult to do that, simply because you're being inundated all the time with messages that you should be dining at certain places, you should be listening to certain music, you should be going to certain shows, you should be doing all these things. And quite frankly, this just isn't the time to do it. The answer. And as soon as you do that, you miss out again. Now, the master you look for might be somebody who's been dead for many thousands of years or hundreds of years. It might be somebody that you trek thousands of miles to see. It might be somebody down the street. It might be some charismatic leader around, whatever. As soon as you go to them, you lose out. You'll miss. You're not going to get it. You're going to be doing it their way. And you have to learn to do it your way. Now, it might be possible to find one or two people who are not wrapped up in their egos, who are there and are going to say, look, do it your way. I'm merely here to tell you that it's your way that's important, not to give you a whole prescription of things that you have to carry out, but to say to you, give up your attachment to things, to material things, give up your attachment to ideas and ideals, give up your attachment to everything, and discover your own reliability, your own ideal inside, your own veracity. Find yourself. And if you find yourself, you don't have to look any further. So the answer isn't in these wonderful books or wonderful people or anything else. They can be a help. But the answer actually is within you when you're born. It's there right from the very start. It's something there that needs to be awakened, not to be implanted into you. So you don't have to change yourself dramatically. All you have to do is discover yourself. What we need in this life is to have more and more of this deeper contact. I think that places like Centrepoint, and there are a number of others like it too, are becoming more and more essential. A few years ago, a few hundred years ago, in other parts of the world still today, it's accepted that people will live close together, that they will work together more closely. These days it's more a case of not taking responsibility for ourselves in society, but expecting the government or somebody up there to take responsibility. We've just had flood. The feeling is still there. The feeling is we complain about vandalism and about the problems in cities, the violence and the crime. Why don't the police do more about it? Well, the police are very limited as to what they can do. They can charge around and they can do investigations. They can hopefully arrest people or quell riots. But if the feeling in the community is that it's okay, if the peer group that they're in is saying, look, don't worry about violence, violence is okay, get in there and kick them. And if that's the feeling, nothing the police can do is going to stop it. Because as soon as they go back to their own environment, they're getting almost medals for doing it. And so we have to look at ourselves and say, can I create a climate where I live? Can I make it very clear to the people around me that these things are good and these are not? Not being judgmental about it, but in the way I live. Can I really experience my loving? Can I allow my loving to spread to other people? Can I allow it to be there? And if we can, most of the problems disappear anyway. We don't have the problems any longer. You don't have to call the police in to quell riots and to stop fights. You don't have people stealing things if they don't really need them or want them. You don't have any of the crimes coming about. And so we have to get back to a closer companionship, a closer feeling, a closer intimacy. And when we do that, we'll then begin to feel that things are fine. We can then feel that we're all living together, we're all helping one another. We can let go of the extreme selfishness, the extreme one-eyedness of people. We can let it go within ourselves. And when I say that, I mean that we have to do it. You can't say, well, let the world out there change, they should do it. The person who has to do it is you. You're the only one you've got direct control over. And if you can do it, then perhaps the rest of the world will start to follow along. But unless you can set that example from yourself, nothing much is going to change. Changing rules, changing laws is a waste of time. If you expect politicians to do it, don't bother. They're part of the system that's not working. The only people who can change are yourselves. And that's why it's important that there are people around who are prepared to look, prepared to listen, and then prepared to take some action toward it, prepared to make some small steps of saying, well, yes, perhaps I could look at people differently. Perhaps I can begin to accept people more fully. Perhaps I can feel more compassion for the world and other people around me. Perhaps I can let go my attachment to all of these idealized things that surround me. And when that happens, then I'm quite sure that the world will change. I think we might have to go through some pretty dire calamities before we get enough people doing it. I'm hopeful it won't be a nuclear one and there'll be nobody left to do it. But I think that probably there's going to have to be a pretty severe economic, political collapse in large parts of the world before people will stop and say, okay, we've tried that. Now let's really try the alternative. Let's really drop the system and try something quite new. Let's get back to a totally different game altogether. And when that happens, we'll lose our selfishness. We won't try and do it on our own. We won't say, I'm okay, Jack, you can go fall in the lake. We're going to say, let's work together with it. Let's all be part of the one. And that's one of the hopes that I have for the future, even though I think that hope without action is probably one of the worst things that can happen to us. We need to have the action as well as the hope.